Foreign the Calisto Protocol has invited many compressions in the 28 survival horror classic Dead Space ever seen, from its camera perspective to its combat and even the atmosphere and setting out there. All we are really missing is the silent protagonist Isaac Clarke. You can even stomp away in the Calisto Protocol. Now implementing that tunes undertaken from 14 years ago is understandable, especially since striking distant studio. The new studio behind this gaudy outing is led by one of Dead Space's original creators, but trying to recapture that old sci-fi flame. It's a double-edged sword, creating a tribute to what is agreeably a masterpiece may seem like an instant win, and Charles Hurl has a truly solid foundations to work with because of it, but the future you delve into its dark corridors, the more you will realize that it has very little to really call its own. While it does take place on a moon's surface rather than a spacecraft. The Black Iron Prison still attempts to capture the look and feel to the ICG and Schmida with its dark hallways and nightmarish inhabitants. A range of similarly designated weapons make up much of the main character Jacob Lee's inventory, and there is still room for a, let's say, alternative kinesis ability. The immersive HUD is just a button press away, and your health sticks down on the outside of Jacob's suit. All the same, it's like you're playing the first few hours of a sequel, where the gameplay feels familiar before the developer begins to introduce some new ideas. Whether this is actually a bad thing or not is difficult to judge, because it makes for the game that is constantly good. It's continually unoriginal, but there is not denying that there is decent level of quality built into the Calisto Protocol purely by virtue of its blueprint. But what is actually new then, I hear you ask? Well, the story for a start, which sees Jacob crash land on Jupiter's moon Callisto, where he is swiftly taken to prison. He does not spend more than 5 minutes in this cell. However, before mutant monsters outnumber the security bots on patrol, giving him a prime chance to escape. What follows is your stereotypical plot where you are trying to escape whilst also uncovering all the nasty going ones of the Black Iron Prison. It's a perfectly serious narrative mixed in with a sizable dose of spectacle. This appeals to the characters to who for the most part are vegetable blank canvases with very little in the way of defining futures. The main man himself, Jacob, constantly comes across as well just a bit of a knob, to be honest, but likely Danny is the saving grace. There's just something about this character that elevates virtually every cutscene she's in. It's a shame neither the plot nor any other character can match. He proves because the little actually has some really impressive cinematics what's happening in them. It's not always interesting, but it does look good. Whilst there's playing out, those cinematics do help the game stand somewhat apart from Dead Space, as does the game combat, which is more about melee combat than it is bullets. In the first half of the game's roughly 12-hour campaign, your stun button will see a lot more action than any gun as you get up close and personal with the mountains of Black Iron Prism. As much many of your encounters with the enemy will be one fates allegedly conjured around dodging, which is mapped to the left thumbstick, and with its timing is paramount as you read the telltale signs of an enemy attack, trying to create a space to follow up with a hopefully deadly blow. The game never really develops beyond mashing R2, but a simple upgrade 3 does introduce a few new moves to think about as you progress. The melee fights will be thought to start and the introductory chapters are actually quite difficult. As your arsenal grows, it becomes a lot more manageable to the point where some enemies won't even get close to you before they have been brutally dealt with, and this becomes all the easy when you get yourself the GRP ability, which allows you to pick up enemies and throw them into active machinery for easy kills, mixing this up. With its melee and gun action makes for a really robust combat system that has a nice weight to it and assigns the little titles. This is pretty much the weight of puzzles. This is survival horror action throw, and throw is easily the best thing about the experience and also acts as a nice differentiation from Dead Space. And when things don't quite work out for you, you have got plenty of brutal death animations that will dispatch of Jacob in a manner of a gory ways. Not that you ever wanted to die, but think how Jacob meets has, and next was a fun buffer to a failed run, returning the game's robots, roots, and more. The Calisto Protocol is almost completely linear, save for a couple of optional areas and rooms off to the side striking destined studios.